Marhaba from Jordan. Hey, my name's Anna Gale. I'm the IHP Fellow for the Human Rights Program. And as part of our mid-semester reflection and preparation for our final country to Chile, we've put together this video compiling our raw reflections. Each participant was given a word, and then they were asked to think about their time during the launch in New York, the 4 weeks we've had in Kathmandu, Nepal, as well as a few weeks we've had in Amman, Jordan, and then also how this concept has intersected during their time in each of these countries thus far. Hope you enjoy!
So, the word that I got was constitution, and I'm going to be talking about it mainly for Nepal because after the conflict they're having to come up with a new constitution, and the constitution keeps on getting pushed back because all of these different groups are trying to have inclusivity and to include everyone because there was a lot of structural violence going into the conflict about discrimination, and they're trying to combat that, but at the same time it's making it all so much more complicated now, and it's also making the whole political climate really shaky, and so it's really hard to anyone to be prosecuted for crimes that happened during the conflict.
We've talked a lot about how NGOs play a role in protecting or advocating or being activists for the social well-being of a population. In Nepal, we discussed how because Nepal has no government, NGOs are really playing a huge role in providing the social well-being for the people. And here in Jordan, it's been starkly different in that there is an established government. So it's been interesting dichotomy, but it's been really fascinating to see, and we're really excited to see what is in Chile.
During our time in Nepal, we went to a rural village, and it was really interesting to see the disparities between that experience and our longer experience at our homestays in Kathmandu. One thing that was really obvious, at least to me in my time there, was that ease of availability of resources was really different, and even so, the village that we went to I think was actually pretty urban in the fact that you could even drive to it. So it was just an interesting experience, and in the end it came down to, I think, that their values and their morals were actually the same in both places, but their ability to access that and take advantage of it was very different.
So my topic is class structure. So I'm just going to talk about my personal experience in two different families, one in each country. Both families that I've stayed with have been middle class, and that's been really interesting because I get to see the differences and the similarities in what it means to be middle class in Jordan and Nepal. In Nepal, they have load shedding, and this affects everyone in the area, and so what that means is that for a couple of hours every day the electricity gets shut off. Whereas here, for example, they have electricity 24 hours a day, but they only have water running to their house once a week. And it's just been interesting also to see the different attitudes of the two families. So my family in Nepal really valued hard work and a busy schedule as an example of their privilege and their class of getting to do all these different things, whereas my family here really values their free time and their leisure activities as an example of the privilege that they get from being middle class.
Okay, so my word is urban, and we're here today at Petra in the middle of the desert in Jordan, and I think the coolest thing I've learned about urban is that there's no way to define urban. We could be in the mountains in the Himalayas and see an urban city sprawl, or we could be in the middle of the desert and see an urban, and that we have the ability to learn it in so many different ways.
Privilege gives me the opportunity to have this experience in the first place. Privilege also puts two groups of people together, and the feeling that I had of privilege was whenever we went to Zatari and we were on a tour bus watching the refugees live their everyday lives, because I felt that distance.
So my word was settlement, and in Nepal we got to explore what being settlements were. We looked at the Bagmati informal settlement, which was next to the Bagmati River, and got to learn a little bit about the difference between legality and legitimacy in terms of informal settlements. And now here in Jordan, we've looked at settlements in relation to refugees and how stateless people explore the globe, and we're interested to see what what we're going to see in Chile for the word.
When I think of the food in Nepal, I think of their staple dish, which is dal bhat, which is rice with lentil soup kind of like thing over it, and like very spicy curried like cauliflower typically, and like pickled vegetables. And I think I had that like 70 times in the span of a month, and it was always kind of different. It was really good. You know, it didn't really like jive with my Western stomach per se, nor did it jive with anyone else's, but it was great. Here in Jordan, the food is a little easier on us. Maybe we were used to it from Nepal. Maybe not. But, you know, there's a lot of like lamb and like bread with hummus, you know, pita bread, chicken. It's really good. I don't know. Food's really awesome in these parts of the world. I like it.
On the program so far, I've learned about LGBTQ rights, which has been interesting in Jordan because here homosexuality is illegal by religious, civil, and tribal law. But in Nepal, we met up with the Blue Diamond Society, which serves as a safe haven for LGBTQ persons. And also we learned that transgendered people are very well accepted in Nepal, and Nepal is actually a center for the transgender community.
Talk about health. Jordan has been much nicer on our bodies as a whole as compared to Nepal, and we're coming into Chile ready to go and energized. A lot of us are also doing research projects centered around health, and we've talked to a lot of speakers who focus on women's health, maternal health, and health for marginalized communities. I know a lot of us are interested in continuing our human rights work in the health field, whether that be on the public health side of things or the medical side of things. So it's definitely a great place to start, and we're looking forward to all the health issues that Chile has to confront us with, and also all the health issues from an academic standpoint. So we can't wait.
One of the things I didn't expect to consider this much on IHP was the use of water in each country. It's an interesting contrast between the US, where you don't really consider using water every time you turn on the faucet, to going to countries like Nepal and Jordan, where water is such a scarce resource, or is polluted or not available to many people. So it's interesting to consider how water is distributed in these areas, and how water can be integrated into the human rights framework.
Jordan is a really interesting country to get to learn about refugees because of where it's located geopolitically and its relatively stable government and relationship with the international community. Jordan has hosted a number of refugees. We had the opportunity to visit with a number of refugee populations. We got to visit Zatri, the second largest refugee camp in the world, 7 miles from the Syrian border, and got to meet with some Syrian refugees outside of the camp. We also met with Palestinian refugees at the Al-Baqa camp, which is now kind of an informal city, and we also had the opportunity to meet with Iraqi refugee families and hear their stories and learn about the role of civil society in providing aid for those refugees.
I'm going to talk about power. Power. It's a perilous concept. In New York, we read this reading by David Kennedy, and one of my favorite quotes was, "Speaking law to politics is not the same thing as speaking truth to power." And then in Nepal, we saw that really vividly with like the post-conflict society, where there were all these human rights laws that were supposedly enacted, but like in reality, the truth was that people still used violence to get power.
My word is men, and I think that as a whole we've talked very negatively about men in classes. I think there are more issues and topics we could talk about involving men in each country. I don't think that the man who catcalls me on the street is representative of every man in the country. And so I hope we look at other subjects in Chile regarding men than just sexual harassment.
So far in Jordan and Nepal, we've been learning about the media. And specifically something that has come up is the way that the media distorts and manipulates certain issues in order to serve the political needs of the government. Jordan Times, which is the English language newspaper in Jordan, is run by the government directly, whereas in Nepal, which does not currently have a standing constitution, the media chooses and favors certain groups based on who's in power, and marginalizes other groups and prevents their voices from being heard in the newspapers.
I think the homestay experience is
definitely like one of the best parts of this whole trip for me. In Nepal, I absolutely loved my homestay. There were 6 of us in one house. We had a host brother that was around our age, and we hung out with him like every day, and it was just really fun getting to know him and his friends and like seeing what Nepali people our age do. And like our host parents were so great. We had dinner with them every night. They made us breakfast every morning. It was just so amazing, and I was really devastated to leave, but that was a really good thing because it meant that I like built really strong connections, and my experience there wouldn't have been the same without them. And then in Jordan, I also actually happen to have a host brother my age, and that's been really great too. I think just homestays are a really good way to like get to know the culture of the country that you're living in, and I think that they're just so important for this experience.
Since traveling to these 3 countries, we've seen the right to housing in a lot of different ways. In New York, we went to the Bronx Housing Court and listened to a couple of cases about eviction. And then when we were in Nepal, we looked a lot at an informal settlement called the Bagmati Squatter Settlement. And now that we've been in Jordan, we've been looking a lot at the right to housing within the refugee population.
So my word is funding, and it's been interesting to see the different ways that funding operates within organizations. In Nepal, we talked about funding and the ethical issues that can arise. And in Jordan, we also talked about funding and the different political issues that arise as well. And so it'll be interesting to see how funding works within different organizations in Chile.
We have talked a lot about women on this program, and I think that a lot of times when you're thinking about women in the context of human rights, you think of them as a marginalized population, but in Nepal, I think, and in Jordan both, I think we experienced a lot of like thinking about the relationship between religion and culture and women and like just like traditional practices.
One of the things about post-conflict societies is that it's not confined to one physical location. And I've learned over this trip that a post-conflict society is about the people, and post-conflict follows a group of people. And especially here in Jordan, we see a lot of refugees from different areas of conflict living in one physical location. And that physical location doesn't define them, but that community defines them.
Okay. I'm gonna start now.
Sorry, I'm looking for Grace.
Oh, not back here.
Not back here. Sometimes she hides back here.
Okay, wait, how do I start? Are you filming me?
Can I start over? Yeah. If NGOs... Oh, wait, hold on.
Pensive, I like that.
The blender's still going.
Alright, whenever you're ready.
No, I can't do this, guys. I hate cameras.
You can just look at me and talk.
Hold on, I need to figure out how to start.
Oh, also in Nepal, dal bhat power. That was the food. And I can't think of anything intelligent to say about Jordan right now, so rain check.
And what obstacles that can... We're just going to end with Chile in this take.
I'm going to be talking about homestay. Okay, wait.
You look great, by the way.
Thank you. Okay, should I say that again?
In preparation for our final country to Chile, we've put together this video.
I don't know, man, like...
Get back in here. Back in the frame.
Coming back in.
Alright.
Okay. Just start over.
That's something.
I keep trying to tell you that.
Alright, ladies.
What if I just...
I'm sorry.
Got him back.
What do you do?
I don't know if that made sense. But you have a lot of ins, you have a lot of outs, you have a lot of what have yous. And people are people, man.